But I think from that moment onwards, it meant that we could be more honest with each other.
Strap yourself in.
I'm like, okay, this is what's really going on. What do you think about this situation?
Yeah.
I think it naturally just gave us...
I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I think there are women who are there for other women, and there are women who...
And obviously there's advantages and disadvantages of the new working rhythm that we've got. On the whole, I think what I've observed is that it has enabled more...
And said, look, I'm going to tell you something that's not... It's going to feel unfair, but it's a reality. And the best thing you can do is work out how to make it work for you. And he said, women will always be the ones that have babies. That is never, that is not going to change.
It's a universal truth.
Correct. So there will be time that, and it's up to you how long you take one way or another, but that you will need to...
Welcome back to the second series of Unfiltered. This is the show where we celebrate the imperfect, the unvarnished, and the unashamedly raw journeys that shape our growth. We're bringing you dynamic duos who've propelled each other forward through thick and thin. This series is going to be bigger, bolder, and this time, thanks to our friends at the Marketing Academy, global. Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered, brought to you by the Growth Distillery and our friends at the Marketing Academy. Now, what happens when two fierce competitors choose connection over rivalry? When we opt to walk alongside those we're told to outshine. So today I'm joined by Rebecca Robertson, Head of Marketing at the ABC, and Belle Drew, Chief Client Officer at Droga 5. Now, Bec and Bel once stood on opposite sides of the pitch, but instead of staying adversaries, they managed to build a bond, rooted in honesty, shared values, and the mutual desire for each other to win. From late night peps to career pivots, from navigating motherhood to moments of doubt, these two have backed each other through thick and thin. Because sometimes our most important career relationships come from the ones we're told we shouldn't have. So today, we're going to unpack how a frenemy can become the fiercest kind of ally. Beck, Belle, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
You're very welcome. All right, so you guys know I've been fascinated to talk to the two of you because I think that this is such a brilliant backdrop. Where did the relationship start? I want to understand sort of the from-to dynamic here.
Well, I think we met at boot camp at the Marketing Academy. Well, I think we probably met first seeing each other's mugshots on getting into the Marketing Academy and immediately sort of go, who am I surrounded by here? And I think we were all quarantined, literally, in the quarantine station. And you had a car, so I instantly knew that we were going to get along because I thought there's a woman
She's gravitated you to the escape route.
who's thought about the plan here. And that's probably where we first started our coffee mornings.
And you're absolutely right. I remember clocking the fact that you were on the list and thinking, my initial thought was, oh, this is going to be hard. This is going to be awkward because we were both exactly the same positions at our number one rivaled agencies. And so I initially thought, oh, this is probably going to limit what I can share in these forums. And, the Marketing Academy was, something that people had talked about where all the vulnerability and that mask is revealed. And you're going to cry and go on a journey. And, there was this brief about honesty. And I thought, how am I going to do that with this type of relationship that exists? And it's quite funny because Beck was one of the first people that came up to me at boot camp, and her energy coming to me was just so lovely and welcoming and excited. And
thanks, doll.
And so I was like, oh, that wasn't what I expected. I wasn't expecting like such a warm embrace. And I think that kind of was that turning point of like, actually, why do I have this perception about the fact that we can't be friends and that we can't have an intimate relationship in understanding each other's lives and challenges? And I think that was just kind of, the forum and the type of environment to be able to challenge the convention.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what the Marketing Academy does so well, though, isn't it? It's that chemistry mix that they get together, that they know better than you do before you get there.
But it's good to know now that you actually were just using me for my car to get coffee down at Manly.
Well, no, that was not why I said hello to start with. I just knew I backed a winner from moment one.
And so was it the same for you in terms of that immediacy, realising that maybe we're getting this construct of toxic competition wrong?
I think there are, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I think there are women who are there for other women, and there are women who are there to compete with men. And,
what do you mean by that?
Well, I think it shouldn't be such a binary concept, but I do think I think women are set up to compete with each other.
Okay.
In a way that perhaps men are less so. And I think there is, unfortunately, sometimes, particularly in, I guess, more competitive industries, you sort of start to look at somebody initially as a competitor rather than a potential, somebody that might have shared interests and shared ambitions and the power that could have with, in combining those two things. And so I don't know. I think maybe you start out on, I started in that environment thinking, well, I guess, like I said, looking at the list, thinking, is this going to be the same as Belle said? I can't share much. It's going to be, I need to sort of keep my guard up, need to make sure that, I'm not letting anything in because, well, that might set me up at a disadvantage. And look, I think the brilliant thing about Marketing Academy is you are required to forget that. Otherwise, you don't get anything out of it. And I think by the time you get to day one of boot camp, they've assessed that you are ready to let that go. You're at a time in your, I guess, life and career where you're prepared to be vulnerable and open and, ready for what could be, charting the course of your life, your next path of your life.
I think also probably because of the nature of the industry in advertising, every single client that we work with is through a pitch process where we have to pitch against other competing agencies for the best idea to be able to secure that client. And so this competitive environment and complexity of how to behave within the industry is kind of having it extends to the way in which you interact with other people in the industry because you're always on your guard. You're always trying to make sure that you're outplaying the key competitors. So I think that that type of industry setup has been a big influence in the way that all the ideals of how we're meant to behave and engage with other people within the industry.
And what do you think the byproduct of that sort of posturing is?
Well, it is a disadvantage because I guess you only go off first impressions, initial assumptions. You don't ever get to really hear the depth of someone's story and experience. And I guess only through our own experience have we realised or have we had, a deeper insight into the power of what that potential could be. So you're really missing out if that's the way that you have to go about and live within the advertising world. Yeah,
I think it's sort of that old, only the strong survive, and it's that sort of sports team mentality of who's going to be the strongest and the most popular and gets picked for the team. And if we're there to represent diversity of thinking and, with the customers or the audience we're trying to connect with, but we only have a bench of the same people, it's very difficult to unlock that.
And we were talking about this just before we turned the cameras on in a different context, but you're missing probably someone that gets your business and your dynamic and your role and your context more than anyone, because we immediately put anyone that is in any way proximate to us at arm's length and, put up these guards.
That's right. And I think there has to be a balance. Like there's obviously a respect for the confidentiality of the brand that you work for. And so we would never, trade insider experience that would put us at a disadvantage. But certainly when it came to, hey, I'm thinking about this, or I've got this type of scenario, the opportunity to be able to bounce it off someone who is the me equivalent, but in Melbourne, from the same type of agency background. And, we've also got really consistent shared history in terms of, both working in New York and both almost being there at the same time and same ages and things like that.
There's similar age children.
Like there's so much commonality that it almost feels like an advantage to be able to have someone who completely understands the situation that I'm in without all of the specifics of the client contextual, but enough of the scenario to be able to go, look, here's a suggestion. Here's the way
Yeah.
that I would be considering it. Have you thought about this? Or, maybe there's another way you could be looking at it. So
Yeah, it's a true sounding board. And I think that's where we came up with our pep texts, where it's like we need a little quick, they've got a big pitch to go into, or, that there might be, we've been talking about something and it's been playing on your mind. A quick little welfare check, a little pep text like, you've got this, you know what you're talking about, you'll nail it. Whatever it might be, I think it's really nice to have that ping up in your messages to sort of give you that sense of, just someone's got your back. And
that's a Beck branded, fabulous.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue, but I'm wanting to make it.
No,
I feel like Gretchen from Mean Girls trying to make fetch work.
No, not at all. I'm giving you credit for the great branding. We might try and brand lots of things in this conversation. It's what we do. It's in our nature. But I think, Beck and I, because of the lives that we're living and the careers and the juggle and all of that kind of stuff, we don't have the luxury of being able to have those long conversations on the phone. So these
Definitely not.
I'm in the lift, I'm writing a text to Beck and I'm on the ferry on the way home and this is what we're doing. And just even the shorthand way of being able to kind of be there for each other has gone a long way to know that, okay, someone's there if I need it. And, Beck obviously would always make herself available if there was a longer chat that was needed, or if we were in each other's city, we would always try and catch up for a coffee. But it's usually those in-between moments where we need each other the most. Yeah. And that's kind of the way in which we've connected and kept each other sane.
Yeah.
The relationship, from what we've discussed, is sort of two acts, right? When you were both in the same space and you had to really walk this tightrope of healthy rivalry and deep connection. In that first act, before we go into act two, where you've gone on different paths and built each other up in different ways, how did that rivalry and that walking that tightrope sharpen the two of you?
I think it probably made us realise that we weren't that different, actually.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think, the industry itself is small. I think agency propositions are nuanced, but fundamentally, they exist to serve, the same outcomes for their clients, for consumers, for, leaving their mark in the world. And more than anything, probably, the rivalry wasn't there. It was more sharpening our own ways to, I guess, do our jobs better. Yeah. And what would you do in this situation? I'm thinking this, or this is a challenge I've had. And it's more, that was probably how we navigated the tightrope, was to what Belle said earlier, less specifics, but more how can we show up better and do our jobs better?
What's the first piece of advice that really sticks with you that you got from Belle that you've carried with you? Guess which question's coming your way.
Oh, gosh. I mean, it might not be the first piece of advice, but it is definitely... I mean, I can hear her, or see her text or hear her voice in my head. You'll make the decision that's right for you.
Oh, okay.
And it's not sort of helping me. And I think that's what, people who really know you and understand you well do. They don't make they don't tell you what to do. They provide counsel where you've asked for it, and then say, you'll make the decision that's right for you. You know what's right for you. And I'll be there either way.
Belle?
I think... it's almost like having a bit of a mirror with Beck. You have to be ready to kind of face some of the truths, and which is great, right? That's the type of friendship you want.
Yeah, it is.
Because similar exactly to what Beck was saying, Beck won't tell me what the answer is, but she will let me know very subtly that I'm on the right path, or that I'm kind of asking myself the right questions. And I think that space, but trust is the perfect combination in situations where you're trying to decide what the right move for yourself is. And Beck has been there to be able to be a sounding board for me when I've asked questions on, should I consider this or should I do that? And just being able to kind of have the opportunity to talk, and then to be able to hear her challenge some of the thinking that I've had, has been really helpful to be able to make the decision myself but knowing kind of we got there through the conversation has been really helpful.
I should add, it's not just about work. I think it is about being a parent and, well, probably a mother even more so, in an industry that is, it's demanding.
Yeah.
You really do need somebody you can talk to about some of the choices or the trade-offs you feel you have to make, because they are, they're painful, I guess, sometimes, but they definitely come with thought and consideration. And I think that is a big part of how you show up and do your job, as well as the one at work and the one at home. And I think that's been, conversations we've had about how we manage that as well.
Do you think that whole dynamic of, work Dan, home Dan, or work Belle, home Belle is a bit of a fallacy, that it's a whole of person and one is sort of inextricably linked to the other?
I try and not talk about work at home. I actually like the distinction of not having work come home with me, because work, when I'm there, consumes all of me. And so to me, I need to compartmentalize in order to be able to be a good mum when I'm home, or a good partner, or to be able to be on my game when I'm in a pitch meeting and, we need to make some hard decisions about the path that we're taking. So to me, of course, I'd like to think that I'm consistent in terms of the way I turn up, and the authenticity of my character is represented both at home and at work in equal measure.
Yeah.
But I actually, I'm not one of those people that goes home and says to my husband, oh, let me tell you what happened today in this meeting, and, ask for his counsel on a situation. It just doesn't, we've got other things we have to talk about instead.
Like growing human beings.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
I'm fundamentally, what I do is a part of, who I am, and that I love working, and I love, being, been doing something I'm passionate about. And I really like my kids to know that, because maybe it's just for me, it makes me feel better about if they understand what I'm doing and why I'm spending time away from them, and that it's important to me because it helps me be better for them. But I'm the same too. I am really trying to phone down, don't engage unless it's absolutely urgent. And then I will say, I have to take this for these reasons. I really try and make that distinction. I do try and blabber on to my husband. He just says,
He gets shut down.
I'm not that interested.
We've finally found a fork in the road.
I'm not that interested. Tell me about your day. He's like, it's not that interesting. So you wouldn't find it. I'm like, I do. He's like, no.
I personally, I tend to sit on the same side of the fence. I've always been a big proponent of sort of one place, one purpose. I'm 5 days in the office, even today, by choice, because that helps me compartmentalise. As mums, I think that juggling act becomes even harder, right? I see it in my wife. But post-pandemic, where blended working, we're seeing everything through rose-tinted lenses and all these incredible benefits. There's got to be a sting in the tail on that, right, in terms of bringing work home with you, and how do you stay compartmentalised and show up and be present as a mum in those mum contexts versus work contexts, when the physical context has started to really blur, though.
Yes, it absolutely is something that I think no matter who you are, everyone's had to navigate it.
Yeah.
And obviously there's advantages and disadvantages of the new working rhythm that we've got. On the whole, I think what I've observed is that it has enabled more creativity in our people, in the way in which we're approaching situations. It means that we can collaborate more with international offices, and just kind of makes it a little bit more dynamic because it's just happening as opposed to physically being together. But yeah, I don't feel like it's something that is specific to working parents. It's something that, is a challenge that everyone has to navigate.
Yeah, sure.
I've had a real change in that mode of working, in that I was in the office 5 days, even post-COVID, then had a break, and now I'm working where the majority of my team are in Sydney and I'm in Melbourne. So I am online almost all day, and I'm a real in-people person.
Yeah.
And so I'm up in Sydney, well, I'm trying to make it every other week, but almost every week, in order to be on the ground and to be able to just, I think I'm missing the, that in-person feeling. And so I'm, actively going and seeking it out. And even when I am in the office in Melbourne, there's just not as much of my team there. And so that's been new for me. How do I build culture and sort of team inclusion whilst not physically being there? So I think that's been a real leadership challenge for me that's been new.
And how have you gone about navigating that?
I think I've had to think through, and I've got to, with my sort of leadership team, how do I start to create an inclusive environment non-physically? So is it doing things through, newsletters every week that I send to the team, and it's the same template, but it's getting to know each of the team, because they don't even know each other that well in some instances. It's quite a siloed organisation now, and so it's really trying to start to bring a marketing department together. It's having to be creative about how I do that, which is
any tips?
I don't think Beck needs the tips from me. I think she knows exactly what she's doing. But I think obviously just coming back to authenticity, being able to build those connections, no matter whether it's virtual or whether it's physical, being able to just connect by being exactly who you are and having the space to be able to hear who they are is all of the things we learned from the Marketing Academy. What
good
a plug.
segue.
It's just a way, I guess, I've observed as being able to create culture and to be able to build something that is tight, no matter if we're close or if we're far away. And usually it's when it's the moments where a team member has to depend on you, or you're depending on that team member, where it's really forged. So whether or not something's happened and you've got to step in for them, or whether it's the reverse and they've got to step in for you, and just that gratitude and the appreciation of being able to turn up for each other and be there for one another. Ultimately, that is how you create strong bonds and culture with your team, in my opinion.
I agree. And celebrating each other's success, I think, is building that culture of, yes, performance, but that sense of celebration of effort and output amongst one another, which then, does create a bit of healthy, desire to want to have their work celebrated amongst their peers. So I think that is a inclusive way of doing that. But look, it's been a really interesting thing that I'm still navigating. I would love everyone to have all their cameras on all the time. But that's less of the, and I think that's, how do I crack that nut is my next, Anyway, stay tuned.
I know that dynamic well. You mentioned authenticity and transparency, I think 2 words that are profoundly important at the moment, especially in multi-generational workforces. But I want to ask the 2 of you about how that's been an ingredient in forging this relationship. In particularly, in an industry where the starting point to your comments earlier was there were certain elements that had to stay guarded. And so how did you traverse that from sort of, as we move from the first part where you've, similar roles, direct competitors, into now sort of a pivoted or a sort of a more of a divergent pathway? How has that supported your relationship and fostered growth amongst the 2 of you?
Well, I think I've stepped into a slightly different, obviously still in marketing, but I've gone client side.
But then the dark side.
Well, sort of, but I feel like I'm halfway because I'm still within the media and broadcast world.
Yep.
So I still feel like I'm getting to see and touch and do all the things that, I've grown up on a diet of, but I'm now doing it, from a slightly different perspective. And obviously for me, that's new, and I'm this far into my career, and it's a new thing to be navigating. I think it is, the ABC has, I think it's over 5,000 people. So it's a huge organisation. I think there's a different set of challenges to work with. I can't just go and raise revenue by selling advertising to tell people, so we have to be strategic and creative about how we drive audience growth. But I think having somebody to bounce off not just some of the, I guess, professional challenges I'm having or things I'm trying to work out how to navigate, but also some of the team, the team things and how do I show up as a leader. And like I was just saying before, I think having someone who knows you and knows where you've come from, but is able to then take that and look at it sort of from a different perspective. Now that I'm in it, but I'm out of it.
Yeah.
It's good, yeah.
I think also I've had a bit of a backstage pass through Beck into client, the dark side, as we just called it. I would actually argue I'm on the dark side, but anyway.
That's what the light side would say.
Yeah.
Because obviously Beck has been brave and, ventured into this new space, and that was something that, Beck was navigating and considering through the Marketing Academy experience. And I guess I've been able to look on with admiration as someone who's taken, a really big step forward and branched out into a new territory, and obviously also has been someone who's been in demand within the advertising world still, and, no doubt getting calls to be able to get sucked back in. But, Beck doing this is really, really wonderful because I get that exposure of vulnerability and also get to hear, more from a client perspective intimately, her experiences, and it's challenged me to think more about thinking about my work from the client perspective as well. So it's been great to kind of open up a different realm into our friendship and hear more about some of the different challenges that Beck is now facing in her new role.
We probably always talked about, and I mean, everyone in advertising who's ever even flirted with the idea of going across to the other side is always told by any recruiter you'll talk to, oh, you don't understand stakeholder relationships, or you don't, it's really difficult. And you think, come on, I'm in advertising. I eat this for breakfast, stakeholder relationships. I will say, I mean, maybe the ABC is a whole other beast in and of itself, which I suspect it is, just by sheer volume of people and the siloed sort of operating nature. But that has given me a very different perspective on why things take so long on the client side, why you can't just have someone say yes to an idea. Yes, you might say yes, but then you've got to convince, the sort of the journey of an idea or a strategy or a piece of work has been really interesting to be on that sort of part of the journey. And it's, who knows where any of us will end up in, 5-10 years' time. But regardless of where that is, it's certainly, I feel like it's added that missing piece of the puzzle to understand, that's why it took, 3 weeks to get something, or 3 months, or,
Were there any other ways that when the shackles were taken off and you could go, hell for leather on sharing absolutely, that the dynamic changed? And I feel as though there's an answer there.
I remember Beck texting me saying, I'm in Sydney. Have you got time for a coffee in the morning? And I was like, oh, I'll make it. Okay, let's go. And then that morning she said to me, I've quit. I've left. And I'm like, what? What's going on? Is everything okay? Obviously. And it was something that I had the experience of knowing that ultimately Beck wanted to try and pursue alternative options and, embark on this marketing client journey. But I think from that moment onwards, it meant that we could be more honest with each other.
Strap yourself in.
I'm like, okay, this is what's really going on. What do you think about this situation?
Yeah.
I think it naturally just gave us a deeper level of connection because we could be a little less guarded.
Yeah.
Of course, still respectful, but it was a way in which we could. I think also when you came and you told me such big news, it was also a moment of just like, all right, let's go. Let's
now
just,
we can move in together.
Totally. Let's just tear up
Here's
the
my
rule book
key.
completely. So that was really, really great.
What was the thing, I'm curious, what was the thing that you learnt about Beck that most surprised you once you got the keys to the house?
Look, I think I just admired how determined Beck was. She has taken on a gutsy opportunity, and there's there's been no doubt conversations along the way to be able to step back into maybe the more familiar ground of advertising agency, but she's been determined to see this opportunity through, and I really admire that because that there's the easier path because it's more familiar, but then there's the path less known, which ultimately intuitively that it's going to be more rewarding because you're going to have this depth of experience you wouldn't be able to access in the previous life you were in.
No.
But I really admire that determination and yes, probably more, but I can't reveal all our trade secrets in this forum, can I?
No, well, but look, I think Belle was incredibly supportive I left with no job. And look, to be honest, I just needed to stop for a minute. And I think I just had a lack of clarity around anything. And, it was warmly, all warm wishes from where I was. And it was more that I just needed to stop. And I sort of didn't know what was next. And that was Marketing Academy for me really helped maybe give me the confidence to do that.
Are we able to go into how that came about?
Oh, look, I think I have wanted to sort of leave advertising forever, but I keep getting lured back in by, I really enjoy it. I know how to do it. I find I really enjoy building relationships with clients. I think I love people, and I think so that's probably offers me an opportunity to be exposed to a lot of people. I think I have a brain that likes, I'm really interested in lots of different things. And so there aren't many industries that afford you the opportunity to be exposed to and understand and help solve problems for so many different, customers, clients, whatever it might be. And so I think I kept getting drawn back into that. And I just having the space and time for a minute, and I was fortunate enough to sort of be able to do that, to then work out where did I want to be? Did I want to be an agency still? I needed to give myself permission and time to look at all of those options. Did I want to do something for myself? None of those, and I think it was actually an old client of mine that rang me and asked me to come and help out for a little bit. And look, that's just, I think I just needed to back myself, actually, and I hadn't really been brave enough to do it. And I think it was probably I hadn't had the right support crew around me who really understood where I was, understood my life stage, and understood that I probably wasn't going to do it without having the support of other people to, again, not tell me the answer, but to let me have these conversations and bounce off them. What if we play out this scenario? What if I play out this scenario? Will it be okay if I do this one? What do we think? And so the value in, there was already a huge amount of value in this relationship, but I think it really did turn it up a notch because it allowed me to just have someone there to support that, navigating that decision making.
What was the thing that surprised you most about Belle when the keys to the castle were given over?
I think she's just so generous. I think she really she listened to me a lot, which, it's that I was going through a lot. So that was a one-sided listening. I mean, I was obviously didn't just talk about myself, but I talked about myself a lot, and Belle was very generous with that and never didn't engage in that. And I think sometimes when you're not working as well, you've got all the time in the world to talk about yourself at any time. And I never felt like I can't, she was there. Now I tried to be respectful, but, she was just really generous. And I think that generosity of spirit and friendship is really a very special quality.
You give what you get. I think the other thing also is like, it just gave us like another opportunity to help each other. So whether it was introductions to people or if it was, hey, have you seen this article, or this would be interesting, or here's what's happening in the Sydney market. Have you seen this in the Melbourne market? It was just an exchange and a different way of being able to help each other understand.
True. I could always let you know if I heard something was coming up because I didn't have to tell.
That was true, actually. Be like, hey, I'd look at this client
Yeah.
actually. Oh, really? Okay, let me find out what I know about that.
There's this incredible desire to help one another, that even from the short time that we're speaking to one another, that I'm getting, you're oozing her success or this ambition for her to succeed and vice versa. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's been built over time? Was that something that was sort of magnetic and gravitational from the beginning? Like, how did that become a thing? Because that's, from the outside looking in, that's such an essential ingredient to what you've got.
Mm-hmm. I would say it was pretty instinctive from the beginning. We kind of met each other at a time when we both really needed that mirror for each other. Yeah. We were both going through similar situations, both asking ourselves big questions. Yeah. And we found each other serendipitously, maybe, at the right time. And I think the other thing I would add is that we don't have the time to drag this out. Like, we went deep very quickly.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
We've got problems to solve and we want answers because we are ambitious, impatient women. True. I think that was also kind of part of it. Yeah. I think we also wanted to try and solve the problems for each other.
I think so.
And so the speed at which our friendship started may have had a different pace to the slower navigation.
Well, we maybe had a little microcosm of COVID at boot camp. It was like, everything amplifies and accelerates quicker because you were locked down together. It's just our little mini COVID that kicked us off.
Was this pre-kids or post-kids?
No, post-kids.
Because there's a lot of mum coming through that. Yeah. I don't have time to build it. I have a need. I need us to sort this out. I need you to help me sort this out.
Yeah, I think also in advertising, you're constantly pressured for time. Yeah. We are, there's no spoiler alert here. It's long hours. Yeah. It's lots of work. Yeah. And we're also relying on so many other people for our jobs. We're working intimately with our strategic partners, our creative partners. We're getting things created, executed out the door on time for our clients, etc. So I think it was just also the pace at which we're used to operating may also be a natural match when it comes to our friendship as well. Unlike maybe other friends I have, we're used to a quick resolution, a pace that is dynamic, and we're looking for output.
Yeah. Well, I think the fundamental basis of advertising is building relationships with, whether it's clients, whether it's internal stakeholders, whether it's production partners, whatever it might be, to get to an outcome quickly. Yep. Best outcome, but also in a timely manner. And so I think we probably applied those same principles to each other.
We were project managing each other.
Correct.
And still do.
But I would say I have a real, in terms of seeing success and really wanting to, I have this, I think I use this to get into Marketing Academy, but it's still true. If I didn't need to, and no offence to any of the stylists out there, if I didn't need to make any money, I would style women for a living, probably women post children, because I think they look at themselves in a different way then, and for a moment they quite often lose who they are and need to rediscover who they are as a new person with a new set of responsibilities, and I guess there's something about when you dress a woman and she stands taller and she looks at herself in a way she hadn't seen herself before, and you just see that confidence and pride rise. I love doing that with people, so I don't actually have the chance to do that as a day job, but I find I build relationships where I can, help people see themselves in a way maybe they hadn't, or they'd lost sight of, or hadn't seen themselves in before. So I think that's definitely for me.
Beautiful contribution. You're basically each other's intellectual stylists.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, I love that.
Can we add that to our LinkedIn profile?
Definitely.
I'd love to touch on motherhood, given that you brought it up, because I think it's one of those things that, I think we still discount, even though we've made huge progress. I think we still discount in terms of just how crucible that is as a moment in young women's careers. How has that changed the way that you guys lead your teams, or the way that you've interacted with one another? Probably added an element to the dynamic, not just toward the two of you, but in the way that you've supported each other and navigated personal and professional growth.
I would say it's not just being a mother, it's being a parent.
Yeah.
And
it goes without saying.
Sure. And look, I think that it's an incredible insight that you can get from the experience of being a parent. And as the cliche is, there's nothing that can compare to it. I have certainly seen more of myself through the eyes of my son than any other forum. And I think there's a real vulnerability that you're exposed to when you become a parent and you're going through all of the, the messiness of navigating parenthood. I would say I'm far more emotional after being a parent. I'll cry very quickly now. But, obviously you just want to bring that experience into the work that you do, the types of relationships that you're building, the empathy that you can have with an audience or with someone who's going through something potentially at work. So I just say it just widens the aperture of your experience and the ability to be able to find a connection and build that connection.
Yeah, I think it's probably the empathy it's taught me more than anything. Also getting a lot of shit done quickly, but that I was all right at, but that's extra. But I think it's the empathy and the basic human understanding that people just want to feel heard. They want to be heard. They want to feel as though you've validated them and you've heard them. Now, there's lots of scenarios where I'm not going around validating every feeling, but I think there's an ability to make people feel as though you have heard and acknowledged their feelings, and I think that has helped me be a better leader in the workplace for sure. Has it helped me be a better leader at home? Well, we're working on it.
It's the never-ending
There are good
work,
days and bad days.
How has your mental model of success changed?
Oh, that's a great question. I used to associate a lot of my success with my career, and if I was succeeding at work, I felt like I was succeeding. And since becoming a parent in particular, I think it's been such a healthy dynamic shift in my mentality to actually define what success is. And so now I define my success in much different ways in terms of the time that I've had with my family in the week, the ability to be able to make it to the school performance, to hear the creaky violin happen, to be able to be there is ultimately my measure of success. And time, like having time with my family is the greatest currency I can have.
Well, I would say not dissimilar. It's funny, to get into Marketing Academy, you have to prepare a showcase piece about yourself that isn't your CV. It's something
self-styling.
Yeah. And so I wrote a children's book to my daughter because I think there was something that and I have a son as well. I love him very dearly, but there was something about when I had my daughter, and I wasn't expecting to have a daughter. For some reason, I had in my head I'd have 2 boys anyway, so I didn't even check what I'd had when I had her until the doctor said, it's a girl. And I just remember this wave of responsibility that came over me. And I don't know why. I've never forgotten it. I can just picture that moment and that feeling right now. And I think I just thought, this is such a big world I've got to help you navigate. And, I've been pretty lucky as a female in navigating this world. And I've also advocated for myself and fought hard. But, there are moments that have been less than ideal, and I think I just really thought I want to do the best I can to try and make the path smoother for you, not to solve it for you, but to remove some of the unnecessary hurdles that you might find along the way. And so I think whilst yes, spending time with my family is just the greatest gift I can ever have, there is something that drives me to how am I going to create this model for you, or this just something that you can look at and say, my mum did something to make it, better for me, or she did something that I can point to.
We both want to make sure that, when we're working, it counts for something.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's not just to, it's also a lot of fulfillment that we get from our careers.
Totally.
We're both ambitious.
Yeah.
We both want to be the best. And so that strive and the I guess, the way in which we're role modelling work and the relationship that we have with our careers is what's important to
100%.
us as parents. And also ensuring that we're, doing that in the most healthy way possible. Because sometimes there are going to be days where work wins and there's days where hopefully home wins. But it's being able to kind of showcase the right type of reason for work and also instill the values that come with hard work and determination as well.
One of the things that crops up time and time again is parenting guilt. I was going to say mum guilt, but it's not. As a dad, trust me, dad guilt is just as prevalent. As two, very successful executives that have been able to clearly navigate this, or granted it's always that constant work on, what advice would you give to emerging and young parents that are just embarking on this journey to help set them up to sort of maybe not carry such a load that I'm sure we all carried as you kind of figure out what the right balance of the scales is?
My dad gave me a really good piece of advice when I was at university.
All right.
And I was about to start, I just finished uni, I was about to start in the workforce, and he said, look, I'm going to tell you something it's going to feel unfair, but it's a reality. And the best thing you can do is work out how to make it work for you. And he said, women will always be the ones that have babies. That is never, that is not going to change.
It's a universal truth.
Correct. So there will be time that, and it's up to you how long you take one way or another, but that you will need to be out of the workforce. And there will be people who will stay in it and they will keep moving up. And there will be moments where you feel that is unfair because you're not there and you've missed out and whatever. And I think that was a really, really good piece of advice, because I think I was not prepared for it, but I think I knew that there was going to be a moment when I was going to have to step out of the workforce, but wanted to step out of it. So I really tried to prepare myself before that. And so my advice to people who are wanting to embark on that is probably like anything, get yourselves as ready as possible. If you're ambitious, I think get yourselves as ready as possible. I think take the time with the child if you can afford to. Yeah. And if you're in a company that supports you doing that, that doesn't mean you need to lose touch with that company and what they're doing. And I think you don't have a lobotomy when you have a baby. But your brain is focused elsewhere, and allow yourself the time to do that, because you don't get it back. And I've got 2 kids at school now, and I feel like they're on the train and the train ain't stopping. Yeah. And I'm desperately running behind it to keep up. And, so I think I'm glad I took that time. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my advice. Take it with what you will.
I think just to build on that, it's probably also surround yourself with the right people. Yeah. Like, be able to have open conversations with your manager around what your needs are, what's important to you, to be able to set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
I think, we can see it from the Create Space report that is released every year, that there's more middle manager female employees dropping out of advertising because of the time frame of motherhood, that people think that they can't do what the hours are and the commitment anymore. And I think that the work, the dynamic shift that we've had with COVID has also opened up a few more flexible options for us. And I think there's accountability on the industry to create more inclusive working conditions. Yeah. So no matter who you are and what your aspirations are, whether it's a family or not, you can set yourself up for success and to be able to fulfill those ambitions that you have. And on a personal note, I would also just say I felt very guilty during those preschool years or the daycare years, sorry.
You just go through.
You're like, I was fortunate enough to be able to take a year off when I had my son Hamish, which was really great. But kind of from that time onwards up until school, I felt like I was making the decision where I wanted to go to work. And then when school comes in, it's compulsory, guys. So I don't know, the guilt kind of shifted for me a bit, which was really mentally helpful for me. And, seeing the benefits, obviously, of the interactions that he was having also helped to quiet that voice. But I think it's going to be there forever. I don't think I'll ever truly be able to switch that voice off.
You mentioned something. This is the last question from me before we move into our final little fun and games. You mentioned surrounding yourselves with the right people. And if that right person happens to be someone that is optically a rival of yours or a competitor, what advice would you give to them? What do we need to throw out? What are we holding on to that's holding us back when it comes to rivalries and competitors and missing a trick in that regard?
I would say don't judge a book by its cover and go out on a limb and initiate the conversation, because I guess if I just went off the conditions of behaviours from, the advertising industry and, what maybe how I was expected to behave, I wouldn't have been able to forge such a depth of relationship that has helped me navigate some of the biggest career challenges and questions that I've had in my 20 years of being in the advertising industry. So I think it would be a disservice to yourself to not explore the potential of what that could be. Now, it could be a complete failure, guys. So don't hold us as like, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. I think we're very lucky to have found each other at the moment when we needed each other the most.
Exactly.
So I would say, put rivalries aside
I think it can be a superpower, though.
All right.
I think it can be a real superpower in this sort of unexpected... An unexpected sort of relationship can be a real superpower. I think it can make the way you think about something, it can give it another dimension. It can help you sharpen your focus. It can help be the sounding board when you need it. So I think maybe it doesn't need to be widely declared, but I think it can be a real superpower. And I think the more people sort of, particularly agencies, are very good at looking inwardly. I think it can be, a real advantage.
It can also help just elevate your game. Like
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
exactly.
but knowing if I was pitching against you, I'd be like, all right, well, guys, we're going to have to rehearse twice as much this time.
I know.
So.
Well, look, when you have rivals such as yourselves, who needs friends?
Exactly.
All right. As we move into the very last chapter of this, we've got a tradition on this series. It's called the Big 3 plus 1. So I'm going to alternate who gets to go first. Beck, I might start with you. What is the single most important question we should be asking ourselves?
Oh, my goodness.
Glad you got that one.
You get the next one first.
Do you wake up every day happy about what you're about to go and do?
Belle?
I think ultimately it comes down to your happiness as well.
I'm going to push you in. You know what? You can't borrow an answer.
All right, let's
workshop another one.
Guys, we're going to need a minute. We'll go whiteboard.
Are you living up to your own values? Like, can you go to bed at night and think, I did the right thing. I answered. I did the right thing in that moment. Am I setting the right example from my son? Am I leaving the world a little bit better than the way that it started? I just think that and also, my big thing is also around kindness. How can we be more kind to each other? How do we spread a little bit more of that right now in this environment and with each other? And so I think that we could all be a little bit more kind to each other, and that would make everything a little bit easier.
Oh, yours was good. Mine was all about myself.
I had to answer it twice, though.
Yeah, it's just true. I might stay with you, Belle, on this one. What's the most important thing to let go of?
Ego. I think for me, I was always thinking about the next position before I was in it, and the title was important to me, and the time frame at which I was succeeding was always I was always running my own race, but my race has always been, I guess, very competitive with myself. And so to me, being where I am in the industry now, I feel very accomplished and feel like I still have a lot of ambition, a lot of fire, and a lot left in me. But I'm no longer chasing that title. I'm chasing the opportunity around being in the right environment, at the right agency with like-minded people that are also super ambitious and hungry and just want to do really great work for their clients and also do it in the right way. So I think I've been, hopefully my boss isn't listening, but I've been offered opportunities along the way, and
He'd be worried if you hadn't.
yeah, true. And great, they can come with more fancy titles, and they can come with a whole lot of different things. But to me, it's more about what I can do with where I am and what's around me. So that takes a lot of ego and self-management to understand what's important. And so that's something that I think I'm proud of, the evolution I've made in being comfortable with who I am and what I do and the title that's after my name on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do feel like I was listening to myself talking about running my own race, so interesting. But I think, look, I try and live by sort of not prosecuting past decisions. They've been made. I can learn from them. But there's nothing worse than sort of that living in the past. So I think I am, I guess, making myself make braver. Just make a decision. Make a decision. See where it goes. It may turn out to have been maybe not the right one at the time, but I've learned something from that, and it'll land me somewhere different. So I think I'm not going to spend time, other than taking the learnings out of it, rehashing what coulda, shoulda, woulda, and just go with it, because I sort of feel like good things will happen. I think I've put it in there. I've built relationships. I work hard, and I'm kind of excited about where I'll be in the next 5 years.
I think that's a profoundly helpful philosophy. Beck, what is a life well lived?
Oh, well, I haven't finished yet. A life well lived. I think if you can, it doesn't actually really matter what I've done professionally. I think it's the people that I have been fortunate enough to have in my orbit along the way, that I've managed to, build special relationships with, that really offer you everything you need. That for me doesn't matter what I've done. There's lots of people doing things.
It's amazing how common the answer to that question is about the people that walk alongside us.
Yeah.
Belle, what is a life well lived?
Well, I don't think the eulogy is going to
exactly.
talk about the number
God, I
of
wish I made
years
VP.
Yeah, I know.
of where I worked and what I was doing.
Did.
I mean, it would be low content, right?
Low audience.
So, I'm on a beach in Italy with my family. No, it's kind of like, to me, it's the moments of joy that you can have to be able to go to, on adventures. The saying in our family is adventure is out there. And so it's being able to go and have extraordinary experiences and to be able to create these memories that ultimately fills you with joy.
Yeah.
And, that nourishment comes from a variety of places. It comes obviously from the fulfillment that you get from when you work hard and you have a really great career. It also comes from the brilliant friendships that you have around you, and even some of the unexpected friendships that you can forge along the way. But I think to me, it's just about being able to unlock those experiences and adventures, and that would be a very happy life that I've lived.
More holidays.
Yeah.
Always more holidays.
We didn't have enough time to cover everything today. What was one question? What was the question that I should have asked you both but didn't? I might start with you on this one.
I guess, one of the questions is, what is the expiration date for women in particular in advertising? We've heard a lot about Beck's transition out into marketing, and I guess I'd like to know and debate more, why aren't there more female leaders in advertising, and what are the reasons why we can't have more of that? So whilst it's not really a question that I can answer in terms of like why isn't there more female leadership within advertising, it's one that I guess I'm constantly trying to collect answers for, to be able to continue this adventure and to be able to have more women be part of it as well.
What is the one question I should have asked you both but didn't?
Look, I think we could have talked all day, as you can tell, but I would say it's funny. There's one thing which sounds so simple, but I feel like I constantly face into it every day, that we learnt in Marketing Academy, which is, I feel like maybe I don't know if I knew it before or not, but the difference between a manager and a leader. And there are so many managers in the world, and there are so many people put in leadership positions that are really just managing things. And I guess what's the answer to how do we actually build true leadership in people at all ages? Because I think leadership is a skill and something that needs to be nourished and watered and helped to sort of understand in all of its context. But I think that can start in the playground and in the classroom, and it can start all the way up to the boardroom. And I just think the question is, how do we unlock that shift to building more leaders than there are today?
It's a great quote. Both two territories we could have had a whole nother hour discussing. But I think ageism, sort of this last bastion of, real, stigma and, misperception, I think is something that absolutely should be the topic.
Well, and also 60 is the new 40, isn't it? So does that shift, like, what does that
really
mean
aging
too?
us up.
Pardon?
We'll be working
Really
to
aging us up
120.
I mean, the new 20.
Bec, Belle, thank you so much for joining us. I think, a lot of ground covered today, but I think some really profound challenges to convention in this space, right? And I think, one of the things that I hope that people pick up from this is the power to put aside the brand that's on the LinkedIn profile and be generous with our assumptions into who we might draw value and nourishment from as peers. But thank you both for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.